Hello everyone, Chad Frantzen here, and welcome to the Kingdom Finance Show. Today we are going to reveal what you really need to know about the economy, the stock market, and real estate. And we're going to give you action steps to take right now to become a Kingdom Impact investor. It's time to bring clarity out of chaos. Let's get started. So today I'm going to talk about creating a kingdom model for investing in a woke world. And so a lot of the work we do, so my company is Wealth Builders Investments, and I have some of my team here. Caleb and Joe may be circulating around. Okay, Joe, raise your hand. And then is Caleb here or is he doing something? Cool. Yeah, so we've got a table out there. So a few years ago, Billy Epperhart and I decided to partner together in an existing business that I had, which was called Authentic Counsel. And it was a registered investment advisory firm. I had started it back in 2011 and had what I call a lifestyle business where I only worked with a certain number of families. I had a lot of time margin, and I really felt like God was calling me into something more. And so about 4 years ago now, Billy and I partnered together to create Wealth Builders Investments, which is an SEC registered investment advisor. So if you think of Merrill Lynch, you think of Edward Jones, you think of Fidelity, that is our space. So that is who we compete against. Although really for the work we do, very few firms approach investing the way we do because we use a kingdom framework. So I'm going to really show you some of my playbook today in how we invest. We manage $150 to $200 million. And so these are some of the portfolios that we invest for families all over the country. And I just want to give you a behind the scenes on how to do it. So I think they're bringing more chairs for you guys. And then this is my wife on the front row. She'll be taking all the question and answer today. So Kelly, raise your hand. So any questions you have afterwards, please see Kelly on that. Great. Well, let's get kicked off just out of respect for time. Wealthbuilders.net, that is our company's website if you want to learn more about what we're doing. And really our goal with Wealth Builders Investments, we feel like God has called us to be a multi-billion-dollar management firm. And so Billy and I, both independent of each other, had been told that by the Lord before we met. And so part of he and I meeting, which was actually through Lance Wall now, was really a divine connection to say, hey, let's make this happen, to be a world-class wealth management firm working all over the world. And so obviously we're crawling before we walk, but we've got a lot of big goals, and seeing people like you in the room encourages us that we know we have the right audience. This is really our vision statement at Wealth Builders Investments, is we want to make a global difference by stewarding wealth that maximizes both its impact and its influence for the kingdom of God. So we will intentionally not invest in certain companies because they violate our principles and ethics. They may have a great business model, they may have great shareholder return, but there are so many fish you can catch that it's a lot easier to say no when you can say yes to other things. A couple of things we do. I did start the Kingdom Finance Show last year in 2023, which was a big dream to get that launched. So we've got a QR code there. You can also just go search for Kingdom Finance Show. So we do once a week. We drop episodes on Tuesday. And what we're trying to do is just keep you with relevant content from people in all the different parts of the 7 mountains on what's going on with Kingdom Finance. So this year we're going to be bringing on more guests on there, guest entrepreneurs, guest investors, people much smarter than me, right? Because I want to find out how a man or a woman that has already climbed the mountain and done it the kingdom way, I want them to share how God did that through them. So Kingdom Finance Show, please check that out. Would love for you to follow us there. In order to become a kingdom investor, we really have to start with why. So Kelly and I really had to get clear on what our why was, because I had a pretty comfortable lifestyle. I was making good money. I was doing good work for families. But God was really starting to stir me of I needed to do more. And then I got connected with Lance Wall now. Mistake number one.
And I was in a mastermind group with Lance, and we would visit at his house, and we would have, I think, quarterly gatherings. This was before Trump was elected, and so it was really before Lance really got on the large political scene. And I was at his house, and true to, if you've heard Lance speak, he can get very prophetic. And so we started talking about the mountains, the 7 mountains of culture. And he said, well, Chad, what's your why? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what my why is. So he said, you're called to stay in the business mountain, in the finance mountain. You're actually called to go up to the top of it. And I have somebody you need to meet. He's my cousin. Mistake number 2. Cousin Billy. So they affectionately refer to each other as cousin, and so that was really how this all started. But what Lance helped me get clear on is I didn't want to just have a comfortable lifestyle business. Amen. Okay? So it's hard. The work we're doing is hard because we want to grow and we want to scale and we want to make impact. And so really my why is the people I live with. So that's my crew, Kelly, Tyler, and Hannah. So that's why I do this. It's not even because I love it. I enjoy it, but it is a sacrifice. Because learning how to invest with a kingdom mindset in a woke world is not easy. However, we do feel God has given us some grace, but I don't want to pay for my kids' college with dirty money. I do not want to pass on a legacy to them that they don't understand the principles behind resources, behind stewardship, behind being a business owner, an entrepreneur. And so that's my why. And so that is, and what Lance told me that day, he said, you need to get so clear on why you're doing it, because when the Lord takes you up the mountain, you're going to have warfare. You're going to have people talking bad about you. You're going to have people who will spite you. However, if you're clear on your why, and you know the Lord sent you there, then you just keep going. It's like a good Lord of the Rings movie. You just keep going. We're going to the mountain, right? And you don't let that get to you. So I want to encourage you to take some time in prayer and just get clear on your why, right? Why are you here? Like, how do you see this playing out for even those of you in your teenagers to in your 80s? Like, what's your why? I want you to get really firm on that. And, of course, here's my Lord of the Rings quote. Open war is upon you, whether you will risk it or not. Whether you are a business owner, you work for a company, you work for a 501c3, you work for a ministry, there is a lot of things against us when we talk about wise financial stewardship. So I'm going to give you some tips on what we're doing. I often start with this question. Does your retirement plan, show of hands, who is putting money into a retirement plan of any way, shape, form, type? IRAs, 401ks, 403bs? It's like an auction. That's a lot, about half. Okay, so do you know if your retirement plan has any of these type of companies in there? Most people shaking their heads yes. You're right. The way the Wall Street system is set up is it's often a basket of the biggest companies, the we call the 500 largest companies. And so all of the big names from Disney to Target to Chase, et cetera, are in there. BlackRock, lower left, is the largest asset manager in the world. I don't know what it is, 10 trillion, 20 trillion. They own iShares, so if you invest in iShares, it's owned by BlackRock. One of the things we have done at Wealth Builders Investments is we've intentionally taken BlackRock out of all of our portfolios. And I'm explaining to you in a minute why BlackRock is probably more powerful than any of those other companies on the board. I also want to ask you, when you think about banking for your businesses, your churches, your personal banking, where are you banking? Are we banking with Chase and Wells and B of A? Are we banking with the woke companies? We really shouldn't be. We should be moving our banking assets to local or regional banks and credit unions. So you can find those in your area. Billy and I have talked about starting a bank, but we haven't to this point. There are a lot of good banks out there that are kingdom, and you can find out. You can find out what their value system is. I had a bank in Oklahoma that some friends went to that we know, and they walked into the bank, and they had like scripture all over the walls of the bank. And they're a huge bank in Oklahoma. So I want to encourage you, even with your banking, let's start there. Super simple. Let's find local, regional banks, credit unions to do business with. A little bit of trivia question. There's about $30 trillion, and that's T for trillion, not B. That's a big number, trillion. There's $30 trillion in the U.S. that's in the stock and bond market that's controlled by Christian individuals or Christian organizations, okay? Pretty big number. I'm not even talking real estate. 30 trillion. Now, some of you have heard this, so you can shout out the number. It's fine. What percentage of that $30 trillion that's controlled by Christian people or organizations is invested with a faith-based framework? 1 to 100%. What do you think? 1, 3, 15, 10, 20, 25, 30, 35, 35 in the back. Who said 10? You got 10 there. 8%. 8%. So this is a movement in our industry, which you can pray for us about. This is a movement in the financial services industry to change this number. Because there are a growing number of companies like Wealth Builders Investments, WBI, that are committed to stewarding money that has a faith-based framework. And I'm going to explain to you what that is. What I want to talk about now is a kingdom framework for investing. It really sits on three tracks. The first one is biblically responsible. The second is pro-values, and the third is what we call social impact. So if it's okay, everybody good? I'm gonna explain each of those three. Is everybody good? Okay. And I think this will help you. So if you're already working with a financial planner, financial advisor, wonderful. You can take some of this back to him or her and say, hey, here's some things we would like to apply. I'd like to apply my values to our money management. If you need a financial planner advisor, our team at WBI is happy to help you. But we also want to empower other really good advisors out there who say, we don't know how to do this, but I would be interested because Sally came to your conference and I just don't know how to do that. So think of it that way also. You can take some of this back. I think having a high quality, what we call certified financial planner is really integral. Even if you are heavily in real estate, heavily in owning businesses, I still think having that round table of counselors, right? I think you need a good handful, a good CPA, a good attorney, a good planner, a good banker, right? And then you get them in a room, and then you take what they tell you to the Lord, and then the Holy Spirit will guide you on, okay, here's how we do the real estate deal, or here's how I sell my business, or here's how I invest in my 401k. All right, let's jump in. So the way the Lord taught this to me was, are we all in agreement that we, as humans, we have a flesh, we have a soul, and we have a spirit? Or is everybody in agreement with that? I need to establish that first. Everybody okay with that? Okay, so the way the Lord taught this to me was, hey, you have, your flesh. And you have to command your flesh to submit to your spirit every day. You also have your soul, which is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And then you have your spirit, the new man, right? And that's where you are seated with Christ in the heavenlies, right? Where you have every spiritual blessing in the heavenlies. So biblically responsible is level 1. I call it getting your flesh to submit, okay? And then level 2 will be your soul. Level 3 will be your spirit. So biblically responsible is to submit your flesh to your spirit. Just means we call it a negative screen. So a negative screen just says, I am not going to invest in Starbucks. I'm not going to go to Starbucks. I'm going to go to Dutch Bros. Oh, Kelly and I carry these cups around all the time. So Chad, we carry these everywhere. So Anyway, I love Dutch Bros culture. I mean, I know people that work there and are managers there, and I think they're really helping a lot of the young people. But I'm just not going to go to Starbucks, okay? Maybe if I have a 36-hour layover in an airport, I'll go, right? But I'm going to try not to. So a negative screen is level 1. The 8% stat that I shared with you earlier, that was what most firms do. They just do a negative screen. Okay, if that company supports abortion or gambling or tobacco, we're just going to negatively screen it. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. It's okay. But there's a lot more we can do. So there are more and more companies, about 3/4 of the 500 largest companies in the U.S. do not support biblical values. They don't support First, Second Amendment rights within their HR and corporate policies. So when we think about managing resources, at least in the stock market or in the private markets, the number of companies gets much, much smaller. So again, these are a lot of the names that I already showed you on that. So this is a negative screen. The second way to invest from a kingdom framework is what we call pro values. So pro values, I think Billy may have coined this. I don't even know where it came from. But when I first met with Billy, I was telling him some of the research I was doing on getting out of woke companies in what we call a negative screen. But then he asked me, he said, well, what about companies that are actually kind of for biblical values, like First, Second Amendment rights, they're for biblical family. Like, what about those? And I said, yeah, they're out there. And he goes, what do you call those? I said, I don't know. I don't know what you call them. They're just the companies that aren't negatively screened. So he says, well, it's almost like they're pro-value. They're pro-values, pro-kingdom values, pro-American values on that. So we've kind of coined that, and that's really your soul. So your mind, your will, and your emotions. When you think about managing your resources, whether it's for yourself or your company or ministry, you've now said no to something. So your no makes your yes more powerful. Would everyone agree with me there, right? You can only go on so many vacations. And Kelly knows I like good vacations. I would go every month if I didn't have to work and if it wasn't that expensive. But you can only say yes to so many things as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a family, right? I mean, we teach our kids that, right? I mean, it's like we have that book. One of Hannah's books is this girl, and she wants to go to every party in the world. Like, well, honey, you can't go to every party in the world. You'd be really tired. So the same way with money management. If we can find companies that are pro-values but are very profitable, they have a strong business model, we understand what they do, I'm going to show you some, then we start funneling our investment resources to the pro-values companies. And I'm going to share with you a study that a friend of mine did who's a portfolio manager that we've started to use. So pro-values, we want to engage. So really level 1 is boycotting. So boycotting's buying a Starbucks, double frap mocha latte, extra whip, extra hot is one thing. But would everyone agree with me that investing is a form of ownership? Can we agree on that? So the Bible talks very specifically about ownership. So when we own one share of Disney or Starbucks, we're now somewhat complicit because we're a shareholder. Now, we have very little rights as a voter, but that's a lot different, than just, watching Disney Plus. If I'm owning shares of that. So let me tell you about, hang on, I'm going to pause on that. I was going to tell you my BlackRock story, but I want to wait. So what we want to do is we want to engage. There are public companies that actually have corporate chaplaincies in the marketplace. Can you believe that? And the way they work is they just say, hey, we're going to support the Bible study on Monday morning. We're going to send out an email. We're going to put it in the kitchen. And if you're Muslim, if you're atheist, and you want to do your own gathering, please feel free. You can do it on the premises as well. But the company is going to endorse this one. And so it's free speech. Anybody can do that. You can have any type of gathering you want. So there's actually several public companies that are doing this. I'm going to show you a couple of them here in a minute. And some of the studies. And also companies that promote fair labor. So one of the things, I'm not going to talk about it right now, that we invest in, we're investing in a company that is trying to help educate large multinational companies on how what they're doing is supporting human trafficking. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow morning, but give you a teaser for that. So a lot of the supply chain in the world, think Nike tennis shoes, that can be traced back to labor markets where human trafficking takes place. Some major corporations do not care. Their bottom line, right? Some companies actually care. And they may not be Christian. They have a heart. They're like the Grinch. They have a heart. And they're like, well, that's interesting. I had no idea. Tell me more. How can I change my supply chain for clothing or shoes? So I'll talk about that tomorrow. That's pro values. The third layer of investing, which I call investing from the spirit man, is social impact, or what you'll hear the Wealth Builders team call kingdom impact, right? So this is just what can be done to aid in human flourishing, right? Whether that's finding cures for diseases in a ethical way, whether that is helping to create jobs, whether that is, fill in the blank, right? Just human flourishing, right? We need to love each other more than fight with each other. And so a true kingdom impact investor is looking for a double bottom line. So double bottom line means, yes, I would like a financial return. Thank you. This is not charity. I do my charity out of this bucket. But kingdom impact is saying I would like a measurable financial return, but I would also like a measurable social impact. Measurable being the key. So if a company can invest and have good financial returns, and they can quantify how many Bible studies they're having on the campus, or how many single moms they're helping in the community, or things like that. If you could own a real estate apartment complex where you had chaplains on site, almost like a dorm room, we're like, hey, I'm here. We're going to barbecue and hang out. I'm going to talk about Jesus. It's a really profitable real estate portfolio, but they also measure what are we doing to actually share the gospel or help people get out of a hard situation. That is kingdom impact. And so if you hear Billy or David Briggs talk about Tricord Global, that would fit in this category. Anyone in here investing in Tricord Global currently? Some of you, great, thank you. So that's a great example of what we call microfinance, where you're getting a financial return, but you're also getting a measurable impact on job creation, getting people out of poverty, sharing the gospel, creating leaders. This is the fun part here. Now, one of the lies that people often hear is, well, you must have to have a lot of money to do that. You actually don't. There's a lot of ways that you can get started in what we call impact investing. You don't have to be a millionaire to do that. You certainly have access for all that. So that's really the three levels. Again, this is really advocating transformational finance, right? So we're looking a lot of opportunities in the U.S. There's a lot of opportunities in Africa that we're working on right now, where we just invested in an orchard in South Africa, avocados, citrus. Avocado is a $14 billion industry. We were able to co-invest with a company that I met, and they're creating new jobs in this town in the agricultural business. So they're creating hope. They're creating a whole economy where these orchards were. And I have an interview with them, and the locals are like, no one ever invests in this part of our country. No one ever comes here. Well, they have amazing land and access to water, and they have very profitable orchards. So these avocados and citrus trees throw off about 25% cash-on-cash return starting in year 3, like once you plant them. And then they're creating a whole economy for these people. Jobs, allow people to get education. That's another example of kingdom impact. I like that. That's fun. I would much rather do that than just invest in the S&P 500. Again, double bottom line, profit plus impact. Both need to be measurable. A lot of people say they're doing impact investing, but if they can't measure it, then, well, I need to measure it somehow, right? I need to know, otherwise it's more theory than practical. This level 3 of investing is what I call patient capital. So please hear me on this. If you want to do Kingdom Impact, and if Billy were in the room, he would tell you this, you really need to have this money committed for more than 5 years, more like 7 to 10. Because think about it. If you really want impact in a community and you're going to invest in a business or real estate or an orchard, it's going to take some time, not only for the profits, but for the community to start seeing measurable impact, whether it's they're going to build a hospital, they're going to start schools, right? They're going to work with single moms. So this is longer term capital. It's what I call patient capital. But I do think when Jesus talks about the 100x return, I do think that is what this is. Because what is the measure on a person's life if you can make an impact on them? I mentioned the examples there. Got ahead of myself. We also have Tricord Global, which I mentioned, and then Billy and I started last year a private equity fund called Solomon. So it's called the Solomon Strategy, and it is for accredited investors. We can tell you more about it at the table, but that is how we were able to invest in that orchard that I just told you about. And I do have a couple of stories of some companies we've invested in for impact I'm going to share tomorrow morning, which we did through the Solomon Strategy. All right, let's talk about BlackRock, shall we? So when you invest in your 401k, college savings plan, whatever it is, when you're investing in paper securities, right, stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, annuities, there's really 3 things you're doing. 1, you're investing. 2, you're advocating. And 3, you're voting, whether you knew it or not. So if the team and I at WBI were to put you in an investment, we have done step 1. We're going to invest in Coca-Cola. Now we have the opportunity to choose to advocate or not advocate for our rights. So there are advocacy groups, just like in Washington, D.C., there's advocacy groups that go to the big board meetings of all the public companies to advocate for rights. So whether that's whether to have abortion benefits as part of HR, or whether that's to be involved in understanding supply chain and human trafficking, or whatever it is. We want the Monday after Super Bowl to be a holiday, right? There's an advocacy group for that. 3rd is voting. So if you own a share of a security, a stock or a mutual fund, you get what's called a proxy. And so a proxy is every year at the annual shareholder meeting, they have a big board meeting, and there's usually 2 or 3 main agenda items. The main agenda items are on there because people advocated for them. And now when they get on the ticket, it's just like the election, right? Now, BlackRock, because they are the largest asset manager in the world, if you are invested in their funds, they are doing the advocacy and voting for you. That's a problem. That is why the 8% number earlier is so hurtful, is because BlackRock is advocating and voting, and they are one of the leaders of the woke one world order, no doubt. So I want to encourage us to move away from that, because when you invest, you're doing more than just investing. You're abdicating your advocacy and your voting, and we do not need to abdicate that anymore. So one of the things we've done, we've created a Pro Values Index. Please take a snapshot of that QR code. It'll be in your handouts. We also have this back at our WBI table if you can't get close enough for that. I really want you to download this report. It's free. We have put together a list of the top 30 public companies that we want to boycott and the top 30 that we want to promote. Whether you're spending or investing, works both ways. So part of the top 30 companies that we promote, that's part of our portfolio. So I'm actually showing you, here's 30 of the companies that we're investing in. And I encourage you, as they are to the extent retail companies, that you promote them as well on that. You can also go to wealthbuilders.net/invest, wealthbuilders.net/invest, and that's where that QR code takes you to. Okay, with the time I have left, let me show you Is it okay if I show you some of the actual models we use? There's some of the boycott list, usual names. I'm not going to spend any more time on them. Here's some of the promote list. I will talk about this tomorrow morning, but the reason I said invest in Coke is that Coca-Cola, the main company in Atlanta, would everyone think that they're woke or not woke? I mean, it rhymes with woke. I don't know. Does that count? So they are. They're very DEI. Very DEI. Go to the website. Very DEI. But there's also a company in Charlotte, North Carolina called Coca-Cola Consolidated. And that's their logo up there. Go look them up. They're the most kingdom-minded. First of all, they're the largest franchise distributor of Coca-Cola products. And Coca-Cola portfolio is huge. And they are kingdom through and through. So much so that the CEO wrote a book called Transformation to teach other CEOs how you can legally be a kingdom company in the public marketplace. And they have had incredible financial returns, over 20% shareholder returns year after year on that. So when I say invest in Coke, I'm investing in Coca-Cola Consolidated on that. So there's some other ones on there. There's some good energy companies. There are some banks on there on that in our portfolio. Let me skip ahead here. One of the studies that my friend did, his name's Matt, and he has a portfolio, and it's called the Flourish Fund. If you want to write that down, I'm giving away free advice here. Flourish Fund, ticker symbol SOVF. Sam, Opera, Victor, Frank, SOVF. And what he did was he took the Russell 3000. So for those of you that don't know, that's the 3,000 largest companies in the marketplace. And he whittled it down through the filters that I just explained. And he whittled it down to about 125 companies. Wow. That's how, about 4%. And what he did, now I know you can't see this in the back, but what he did was he built a portfolio around it that is going to have Coca-Cola Consolidated and some of these other in there on that. But what he learned in the process was that companies that were spiritually integrated, public companies that were spiritually integrated, they did Bible studies, they had chaplaincies, they were super involved in their community. They had two things. They had higher employee retention. Now, how many of you know as business owners that's a big one, right? I mean, turnover in your company can be expensive. They had the highest employee retention, one, and two, they had a higher return on shareholder equity because they became more profitable. And so they weren't expressly saying, hey, we're like a Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby. This is just how they were running the company. In fact, this chart here, the far right number, the far right blue bar, looking back 10 years, these the top 50 of those companies had a 23% rate of return compared to the Russell 3000 index, which had a return of 13% per year. So what that means is that what Jesus taught works. It's not like, oh, that's just in the chosen. No, it actually works. Like even in that day of AI, it works. So what I'm telling you today is you can go find the Flourish Fund and buy it yourself. Wonderful. I encourage you to do that. That's also one of the funds we use in our portfolio for that. So why wouldn't I? If it's going to outperform the market and have my pro values and have impact in it, for the part of your pie that's in public securities, right? I know many of us invest in businesses and real estate. But for this piece, why would I not do it? The common objection is, well, because I won't get good returns if I'm not in Google. What about Google? I don't care about Google. You can make just as much or more if you're in these type of companies that are spiritually integrated. Okay, I'm going to skip a few slides here. I want to show you my model. We've taken Billy's XXX and created a model around the XXX concept. And there's really six different strategies. And if you're familiar with the XXX, the goal is an asset is something that puts money in your pocket. Your personal residence is not an asset. It's a liability. These are 6 different categories. I will read them off to you. Dividend-paying stocks, bonds that pay interest, private real estate, private credit, which is a type of fixed income, oil and gas, and then the 6th one is an alternative investment, which we call conservation, and specifically wildlife conservation. So what we've done, I'm kind of showing you my playbook. We've created a model around these 6 strategies. We've vetted them through and through. We know we can get good long-term growth. We know we can get good cash flow. So if you're trying to get out of your 1X to the 2X, these type of strategies can help you do that. And of course, if you're doing the real estate on your own, that's wonderful. We encourage that. We can come around you and put some of these investments around what you're already doing. You may not need all of them. So let me show you a couple of pie charts. One of the things we do is tax planning. So with the time I have left, I'm going to show you this chart and then 2 of our models. So tax advantaged investing, the last 2 asset classes, one was called oil and gas, the other one was called conservation. A couple reasons why we like them. Really strong cash flow. Does everyone like cash flow? Checks in the mail? Can I get a witness? Checks in the mail. Okay, oil and gas and conservation have extremely high cash flow. Now, it needs to be suitable for your portfolio, but one of the other benefits of these 2 types of strategies is you get significant tax write-offs. Who wants a tax write-off? I do. Good Lord. In addition to real estate, which has very strong tax benefits, so one of the reasons why I use it personally. Conservation, you can get 80 to 90% of every dollar you put in as an income tax write-off year 1. So if you put in $100,000, you're going to get $80,000 to $90,000 off of your income. So for a couple of you, that is worth the price of the ticket, as they say. Oil and gas does the same thing. Me being from Texas, these are both very popular asset classes in Texas, conservation and then oil and gas. Oil and gas, you can get 50 to 60% tax write-offs in the first 2 years, and you can get really strong cash flows. So I like these. These are 2 of my favorites from a tax standpoint. And let me just show you here as I wrap up. This is one of the models. I just call it the core model. And again, it's kind of like cooking. You can kind of mix and match how you want to do this. But in here, I've got 20% in real estate, private equity, and public stocks. And then I also have a small amount in some of those alternative investments. That's the red is the 12%. That's in some of those alternative tax planning investments. We get a lot of questions about gold and silver, right? I do invest in that. It doesn't pay me a dividend, but I do like having it. So I have in here about 8% in precious metals. And then I think that kind of rounds it out. So 20% in each of the major categories: public stocks, private equity, fixed income, and real estate. And then I round it out with a little bit of precious metals and some alternative investments like conservation or oil and gas. Now, everyone's going to be different. So what I would tell you is whether your model looks exactly like this or maybe you're heavier in real estate, I want to encourage you as I close to think like Solomon and invest in 7 or 8 different ventures, for you know not what will come upon the land. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining me today on the Kingdom Finance Show. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps to get the word out. For more resources on becoming a Kingdom investor and to connect with us directly, visit our website at wealthbuilders.net. That's wealthbuilders.net. We'll see you next time on the Kingdom Finance Show. The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Authentic Counsel, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.